Who knows, maybe this is the moment you see a truss rod snap on camera. The Yamaha 12 string I bought last week at the auction. Going to do a little bit of setup on it. It's in remarkably good condition, really. This is a 40-year-old guitar. This was early 70s, and it sounds lovely. I'm gonna, hopefully that picks up. But the one big problem that immediately shouts at you is the bottom E string. Hope you can hear that, the buzz. And there's a very good reason for this. Okay, here's the bridge, and I don't know whether you can see the angle on the bridge. What we have here, I can get a better background contrast, there we go, is we've got the good old Yamaha belly. The little research I've done suggests that these guitars are under braced, something Yamaha were aware of and later corrected. And so we've got a little bit of a belly up. It's not too much, but it's enough to angle the bridge forward, if you can see that. Although I think the shape of the bridge, maybe the bridge is angled forward a little bit anyway. But it means, if we can focus in on the bottom string, that the break angle over the bridge is virtually zero. Hence the buzz. There's not enough downward pressure on the bridge. Can you see how that bottom string is pretty much straight as it goes over the bridge? So what do we do? One of the things I've noticed is there's a little bit too much relief in the neck. There's a bit of a bow, a bit of a forward bow on the neck. So I'm just going to try to show you that. And we'll first of all see if we can correct it. By the way, shub capos, they're wonderful little things. Miracle of engineering, eccentric cam system that locks onto a neck in such an elegant way. Absolutely brilliant. Normally I wouldn't bother with a capo checking the relief, but I've got to do this one-handed. So don't know whether you can see, but there's quite a lot of bow in the neck. I hope that's obvious from the video. There's a lot more relief there than I'd usually have. So also, the action at the 12th fret is perhaps a little bit high. It's about 3.5 millimeters, perhaps a little bit less. It's more than 3 millimeters. Now, you don't adjust the action using neck relief, using the truss rod. But in this case it might help, because if we just take a little bit of the bow out of the neck with the truss rod, the neck will go back that way, and it may just help a little bit with the angle of the string over the nut. But to be honest, I doubt it, and we're going to have to do some other things to correct it. So let's just try changing the action first of all. I'm going to slacken all the strings off because this is a 40-year-old truss rod. I'd recommend taking the tension off the strings anyway when you're tightening the truss rod. But this is a 40-year-old guitar, and I have put a little bit of oil in the nut, but I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to tighten the truss rod. We're about to find out. I hope I don't break it. Please. So I'm just going to slacken the strings off. Right, I've slackened the strings off, and that means it should be easier to adjust the truss rod, and it also means I can pull Well, easier said than done. It also means I can get the string off the nut either side of the truss rod and make it easier to work the truss rod, like so. Now, I have a nice little long reach. I mean, this is a 5/16 socket, but it's quite a small set, and the only wrench I've got which will fit the end, because normally it comes with like a screwdriver attachment. You're not really meant to be applying much force to these, I guess. The only wrench I've got is a torque wrench. Now, I've got this set on 10 Newton meters. I've got no idea what the torque setting on a truss rod is. And I went online yesterday to try and look up what the maximum torque on a typical truss rod is. And there was a question asked on the Ibanez forum gem site, the Ibanez gem guitar. And the guy, I assume he was a guy, asked the question, what's the maximum torque setting? And the reply came back, stop being a girl. Well, I thought this was a perfectly sensible question to ask, because if you damage your truss rod, well, bye-bye guitar. On another forum, I saw something from somebody where they said, while I was adjusting the truss rod on my bass guitar, I heard a bang. What's happened? And of course, much howling, laughter, derision came back in the replies, basically saying that your bass guitar is, yeah, insert a suitable word there, beginning with F. So the guy on the gem site, in reply to the stop acting like a girl, stop being a girl, I think was the thing. He might have been a girl. He did a very elegant reply. I might put a link underneath the video. It's worth a read. But hey, girls ask sensible questions. We don't just dive in. We try to get things right first time. So, 10 Newton meters. Let's see what happens. Now I'm only going to adjust it 1/8 of a turn. I'll then have to tighten up the strings again, retune it, leave it an hour, maybe overnight, but for the purposes of this video, let's leave it an hour and see if it settles down. And we'll see whether it makes any difference. But I suspect, given the amount of rake in the neck, I might have to do this twice. It might have to be 1/4 of a turn. But for now, I'm just going to give it 1/8. Here goes. That went okay. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. So, we'll put the tension back on, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Okay, I've got the strings back up to tension. It's not perfectly in tune, but for the purposes of neck relief, or lack of it, yeah, it's good enough. And still seems to be a little bit too much. And it still buzzes. We're going to go through that cycle again. I'll put another turn on the truss rod, another 1/8 of a turn, and we'll see if that makes a noticeable difference. Right, we've got the strings slackened off. I thought I'd film this second round of truss rod adjustment, because who knows, maybe this is the moment you see a truss rod snap on camera. Did I say 1/4? I meant 1/8. There we go. All seems well. Incidentally, there is no truss rod cover. I knew this when I bid on the item. I knew the truss rod cover was missing. I suspect somebody's been having a go at the truss rod themselves, the previous owner. Maybe you can see that the end, the screw slot is a little bit knurled, So it's seen a little bit of action. Maybe somebody didn't use a big enough screwdriver. You'd have to use a pretty big screwdriver to adjust that. So maybe somebody's been having a go at this with a screwdriver and has really messed it up, and then not bothered to put the truss rod cover on. But let's get it tensioned up and we'll come back to it. And we're back. It's still not quite in tune, but near enough. And it's still buzzing as I expected. I think I can actually put a little bit more relief in the neck. Actually, it's still a little bit high. But interestingly, if I take my ruler, because I've already checked this, the action has dropped a little bit, which is to be expected if the neck is being pulled back that way. It's now spot on 3mm on the bottom string, which is good, but it hasn't fixed the problem, and I didn't think it would. I'm going to change the strings, see if that fixes the problem. Kind of suspect it won't, and if it doesn't, then we'll go in with our plan to just take a little bit off the bridge there. Maybe I should just explain what I'm going to do. I have a little needle file. So what I plan to do, if the change of strings doesn't help, is I'm going to take the bridge pin out and I'm just going to file away a little bit in front of the bridge pin, just so that the string, instead of coming out and flattening off like that, it's able to have a more gentler bend coming out of the hole. So it's not trying to be bent right angles, it's just allowed to have a slightly less angle, and hopefully the string will then be at an angle. Does that make sense? At the moment it's coming out the hole vertical, and by the time it's bent over it's flat. I want it to come out the hole at a slight angle, and so allow it to have a little bit of an angle over the bridge. That's the plan. We'll see if it works. So, restring time. I haven't got my string winder with me, which is a nuisance. It's in my other guitar case, which isn't here. Right, I finally got the strings off, the old strings. Got them all bundled there for now. And it's a chance for me to use the new Crimson Guitars fretboard restorative, which I have to say smells lovely. It's all natural apparently. I don't know what's in it. It says patent, but it's I'm assured it's all natural products. So let's put a little bit of this on. I've realised actually that the strings that I'm putting on, the D'Addarios, they're 47s, and that's a little bit lighter than the strings that were on. The strings that were on appear to be 53s. I measured them with my calipers, and so I'm going to leave the truss rod as it is for now, get it all strung up and take it from there. It could be with the lighter strings on, then that's all that needs to be done with the neck. But we'll see whether we've still got the buzz with the lighter strings, because I suspect we will, but who knows, maybe we'll be lucky and these strings will be slightly more bendy over the bridge and create their own steeper angle and not have all the problems that we were getting with the old ones. These frets are amazingly rutted. How about that for a set of notches? Buenas noches. Mucho bueno. Oh, sorry to any Spanish speakers out there. Don't know what got into me there. It'd be interesting to see whether a fret crowning will fix those. I haven't got my Crimson Guitars fret crowning kit. I'm waiting for it. It should be arriving soon. So when I get it, that will be the first thing I do. I think we'll see. But we'll see how it plays. It might be pretty tricky to do string bending on the lower strings when they're that slotted. But we'll get it strung up first and see how it plays, and we can do the fret dressing later. Just want to get it in a playable condition first. Right, I'm going to keep all the pegs in exactly the same hole. Oh, they come out really easy. Thought I was going to have a struggle there. So I'm going to do the strings 2 at a time. I like to reach in and just make sure that the ball end is sitting hard against the bridge plate. I thought I'd show you how to restring, seeing as my slotted headstock restringing video was all stills, or mostly stills. I really need to get a block, a proper luthier's block to put under the neck, but hey. I'm going to string all of these strings, because the holes are towards the outside of the pegs. I'm going to be winding all of these strings to the inside. So what I want to do, thread that through and up. Now I'm giving it a fair bit of slack, pretty much as the Martin Guitars video advised, although I'm going to give it a little bit more. Although without my string winder this is a real pain. And so because we're going to be winding to the inside, we want the winds to lock down the end of the string. So we take the string around the outside and wrap to the inside. Okay, and then that end will get locked down by the subsequent turns of string. Now before we go on, it's safe to take the end of the string off, and that way we don't scratch any bodywork, although I think my bodywork's fairly scratched already. Right, I think this might be a fast forward at this point, because without string winder, oh dear, this is tiresome. So as you can see, as we come round, this wind of string will go over the end of the string and it locks it down. Now if we've got enough string, I'll let it do that a second time. And it really is a pain without a winder, it really is. I could well recommend them. Oh. Okay, so it looks like we're going round again. Now, on this, what I think will be the final turn, I won't let the string go over the top of the end. So I'm just going to move the string behind the string end, like so. Nope. There we go. so it will be sitting firmly against the post and won't have the string underneath it to potentially move and destabilize the tuning. Some interesting sounds coming from it. I think we might have back bow at the moment with all the strings off. Don't know whether you can see, but we have already got a groove there that's, I think, just formed naturally over the years from the action of the strings. And I'm just going to enhance that a little with a file and maybe bring it to here. Just so that it gives it a better chance of having more of an angle, and effectively the string is starting closer to the bridge. Just increase the angle over the bridge. And I'll take the other pin out. It's silly doing this so close to the pins. Quite why I've left the strings in, I don't know. I just thought it'd be easier though, it could put the pins back in the same holes. Right, that's enough for now. We'll see whether that's made any difference. I don't want to do too much in one go. This let's just keep it subtle. Water. I hadn't realised that the G string, the high G string, is 0.008, and I think that's the first time I've ever strung a 0.008 string. I've never used a gauge that light, and particularly on a slotted headstock, so fiddly. The moment you take your hand away from the string at the top, it just pulls out because it's just so thin. So that was really, really fiddly. But good news. Actually, that's okay. That's buzzing against the fret. It's not buzzing against the bridge. But that, you like the sitar sound? That is buzzing against the bridge. So I need to do some more filing, but I think the bass string I've fixed. So good news. Yeah, so what I will probably do is leave this overnight, let it all bed in, make sure I've got the action okay, make sure the truss rod doesn't need any further adjustment. But I think I'm there with the possibility of a little bit more filing. to the to those strings. Oh, at least I haven't got to take the light strings off. I've only got to take the heavy strings off, which is good news because they're a lot easier to string. So yeah, done. It's 2 days later and the guitar's playing great. I've slackened the truss rod off just a little bit and all the buzzing's gone. So, success. Look forward to playing it. See ya. Missed. It was lovely sunshine a minute ago and I started filming and down came the rain.